Ladies and gentlemen, to the very first, the inaugural, if you will, Field of 12 Best Bets gambling show presented by our sponsors over at BetRivers Sportsbook. My name is Rob Dauster. I am joined today by the one and only Greg Waddell, the Parlay King, if you will. Jimmy Ott, who is one of my favorite radio hosts and a guy that I love going on with down in Baton Rouge, is going to be part of the rotation with us this year. He could not make it today. He will be here next week. Every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, we are going to be live breaking down that weekend's biggest games. Today, there are only 11 games on the slate, so we have a limited show in terms of what we're going to be talking about for Saturday's action. But my man here, Greg, has plenty of futures, national title futures, Heisman futures, conference futures, over-under futures, and we have the first edition of the retirement parlay, 11 legs, every single game that you're going to be seeing on Saturday. Greg is going to be rolling it out, and if it hits, I think we're going to be retiring, fellas. So without further ado, let me introduce my co-host for the afternoon, the one and only Greg Waddell, the Parlay King. Sir, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Look, it's been a long 6 months of betting God knows what. I mean, I think I'm more familiar with every single surface in tennis than I've ever been in my life. But we have football in 2 days. And if you're going to give me 11 football games, even if they're ugly football games, you're out of your damn mind if we're not putting an 11-leg parlay together that I feel fantastic about, Dauster. So we're here. I couldn't be more excited about it. Let's rock.
And to be very clear, when you say there are 11 ugly football games on Saturday, there are 11 ugly football games. But if there's one thing that I've learned in all of my years of degeneracy, it's that the ugliest games are the ones where there's plenty of value. So, Mr. Waddell, let's start. I want to go with this. I want to open up with the game that's going to be opening up in Dublin, Ireland. Nebraska laying 13 points against Northwestern. The total there is 49.5. The projected score would then be 31.25 to 18.25. We're getting into quarter points here, Gregory. That's how in-depth we go. What do you like here? Where are you leaning?
So this game is so Big Ten, it hurts, and it's beautiful that that's the very first game of the season. Everyone that I know from Big Ten country, though, is baffled that Nebraska's laying 13 points against anyone, anywhere. I mean, we are talking about a program that in 4 years under Scott Frost has never eclipsed, I believe, 4 wins in a season. I mean, they alternate 3 wins, 4 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins. And there's a date that matters to me with Nebraska football right now. It's October 1st. That's the day that Scott Frost's buyout drops to $7.5 million. I think everyone involved in Nebraska football is very aware of that date. But quite frankly, I don't really view Scott Frost as a guy who can do anything about that. I think he's a bad football coach who has not been able to take talented players and turn that into wins in the Big Ten. On the other side, we have a coach I trust. That's Pat Fitzgerald. He's had 5 losing seasons in his long tenured career at Northwestern. He's bounced back with a winning season 4 of those 5 previous times, multiple times winning 10 games in those seasons. I think that Northwestern actually has some stuff here. They weren't very good. They got smacked by Nebraska, but 13 points is such a juicy number for a program that I respect against a program I don't respect. This is actually my lock of the week, Rob. Northwestern plus 13. Lock it in and feel great about it.
In case you missed that, that was a program I don't respect that Greg Waddell just dropped right there. I want to add one thing to that. This game is going to be played in Ireland, right? Both of these teams are in Central Time Zone. That is 7 hours away. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of jet lag, if you will. And early conference games and early season games always end up being ugly because teams are not quite clicking. So I do like the under here as well. It's like college hoops, man. The neutral site games. Hammer that under when there's no crowd in there. There's no juice in the building. I can't imagine we're going to have a packed house in Dublin for Nebraska and Northwestern football. Like, if we're really trying to get this sport to go worldwide, why are we sending them Nebraska and Northwestern? Come on, what are we doing to the Irish here? It's not fair.
Yeah, it's harsh. I mean, the good folks of Dublin hopefully will be drunk enough that it looks like USC Alabama by the second quarter. But we can make jokes about how bad of a game this is, and it is true, but I also don't want to completely disrespect this. Like, we have a field of 12 All-American on the offensive line for Northwestern. It's not like they don't have a couple of dudes. Helinski, the former South Carolina quarterback, I think he started to find his rhythm last year. Like, they do return 9 guys from offense. I think Nebraska's hope, like they're in the top 5 in the Big Ten on odds to win that conference. I know we're going to get into that later, but like everyone's just hoping that new faces everywhere means something. And if Scott Frost is the catalyst, like, can we really take that seriously?
Yeah, I will say this too. I have sources on the ground in Dublin, and if anybody is spotted in Temple Bar at any point on Friday night, tomorrow night, I can guarantee that they are not going to be up and ready for this game at 12:30 Eastern time. All right, let's move on. Wyoming at Illinois. Illinois is laying 11 points, according to our good friends over at BetRivers Sportsbook. The total there, 43.5, which means that the implied score is 26.75 to 15.75. That's how in depth we go here. Greg, what do you like in this spot?
So I have 2 leans here, nothing that I feel fantastic and I'm rushing to BetRivers to place a bet with. But if you force my hand here, I lean the over. Wyoming, 5 of their last 6 games last year went over. I don't think 44 is a lot of points. I think both teams could easily get into the 20s against defenses that don't have a ton to write home about. The difference for me here is that Wyoming just got absolutely decimated in the transfer portal. They lost both their quarterbacks. They lost their running back, Valladay, who I'm well familiar with from late night West Coast bets last year, to Arizona State. Illinois, on the other hand, is bringing in more faces rather than losing them. Tommy DeVito, the Syracuse transfer, actually had a fantastic year a few years back in 2019. I'm optimistic he could do some things in the Big Ten. I do think there will be some juice. This is a true home game for Illinois, so I think that stadium will be buzzing against a bunch of new faces who are kind of looking around on the Wyoming sideline like, okay, here we go. I don't know. If I'm forced, Illinois minus 11's the play. I like the over slightly better, over 44.
So I would lean towards Wyoming just because I want to be able to root for tears from our new producer, Trevor, who is an Illinois alum, who is a big Illinois fan. So that's the only reason I would lead Wyoming. I don't know if that's great betting advice. I don't know if that's sound betting advice, but that's kind of what I'm going to do personally. All right, we're heading out to the islands. Vanderbilt laying 8 points at Hawaii. The total there is 53. What do you like?
So another one where it's hard to like much on either side here, but look, everyone wants to bet Hawaii. Like if you're a true college football fan, the first Hawaii game of the year is like a special moment for you. And it definitely is for me. It's even more special this season though, Rob. Timmy Chang is Hawaii's new head coach. Like there's going to be some buzz in the islands on Saturday night. And they're playing a Vanderbilt team that has 1 SEC win in 3 seasons. Look, they're 2-19 in that time. They lost to East Tennessee State last year. Like this is not some team that just because they're an SEC team, you waltz across the country, across the ocean and feel confident laying more than a touchdown. And I say this more with football than anything else that I bet. Betting football is a numbers game. Key numbers are critical. And if you can get a line above 7, upwards into 7.5, 8 territory, which is where it lands right now at BetRivers, I mean, that's a full touchdown. Give me Hawaii. Give me the home team against another program that really has a lot of problems on their hands.
And once again, fun with time zones. Vanderbilt is flying from Nashville, which is Central Time Zone, all the way out to the islands. That is a 5-hour time difference. So I will be on Hawaii in that spot as well. I like that. I like your analysis, Greg. Good. We're 2-1 on the same side here together. All right. Yukon at Utah State. Utah State is laying 27 points against Yukon. 27 points. The total there is 59.5, which means the implied score is 43 and change to 16 and change. And man, Greg, give me something. You got to give me something here.
Can Adama Sanogo suit up? Because that could make a big difference here, if we're being honest.
He would be the best left tackle in the history of the UConn football program. That is a fact, a certified fact.
So I'm actually going to go with your boys here, Rob. It's UConn. It's UConn plus 27 for me. And I might be delusional. I might have talked myself into this, but you know, I expect some steps forward for this football program. And if they don't take a step forward, I mean, they're as low as they can possibly go, right? They can't go backwards, so it would just be stagnating. But they bring in Jim Mora Jr., who was UCLA's coach a few years back. He pulled players from the portal from Penn State, from Alabama, from Michigan, from Kentucky. And this is a yukon team that if you did pay any attention to them whatsoever, which no one did except over the course of last season, they got blown out their first few games by 40 plus points. And by the end of the year, they were losing games by, 2 to 3 touchdowns against Houston, against Wyoming, against Vanderbilt, teams that at least have a pulse. So to me, they're playing Utah State, who's coming off a banner year. And Utah State was really, really good last season. Mm-hmm. They lose a lot. They lose 3 of their top wide receivers. Logan Bonner, the quarterback's back, but they're missing a lot of the key guys he relied on. And most importantly here, Rob, Utah State's defense gives up points. The way they want to play football is shootouts. They want to win 50-20. They don't care about shutting out bad teams. All that UConn has to do here is score twice in a football game to cover 27 points. And with their new quarterback, Taquan Robinson, a Penn State transfer who's a dual threat guy, I think that's easily done. I'm taking the Huskies plus 27.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that you mentioned right there is that if you lose this game by 3 touchdowns, you know what happens?
You cover.
You cover. You cover. It's a game about numbers, right? It's a game about covering, Gregory. So I like UConn there as well. And there's no homer bias there. Absolutely not. You got anything else? Any other leans for the games on Saturday?
It would be dangerous to my family if I did, Rob. So I've locked in on those 4 for my wife's sake, not for my own.
All right. So we're going to get to the retirement parlay here in a couple of minutes. I do want to talk about futures with you because I think there is some interesting value here. Let's talk about national titles first. Alabama right now at BetRivers is plus 125. Ohio State is plus 250. Georgia is plus 450. Clemson is plus 1,000. Texas A&M plus 2,000. And USC, I'll get to in a second, is plus 2,000 as well. I think there's a little bit of interesting value there. Let me start you off with this. Is the 3 favorites, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. Is there anyone there that you would fade, right? Do you see any value there? I think Georgia, I'm staying away from Georgia. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I would say this. I don't feel great using the terminology of fade for any of those 3 because I do think that's like the clear tier 1 of potential national title contenders this season. If I have to pick one, I'm definitely leaning Alabama. And look, it's Nick Saban. It's the Tide. Like, I think this is almost, as weirdly as it sounds, a buy low opportunity for this program after the way the national championship game wrapped up last season. I firmly expect this to be the best football team in the country. I have no reason to think it's not. They've got the Heisman quarterback back. We're going to talk Heisman bets in just a little bit. But I mean, there's been times where you can find value jumping back in on the Alabama bandwagon after they haven't raised the trophy at the end of the season. I think this year is one of those years. I definitely believe that Ohio State and Georgia are contenders, so I'm not fading them, but I'm picking Alabama out of that group at plus money and feeling great about it.
Yeah, I think Georgia's a little bit mispriced. I feel like that's a little bit too cheap for what I would want based off of what they lost. Nakobe Dean, George Whitfield has talked about it on our shows over and over again. Smartest guy he saw in football last year on the defensive side of the ball. And that's a big red flag for me. I like USC.
Ooh.
20-1 odds. You're getting Caleb Williams with Lincoln Riley. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Jordan Addison's there. Am I crazy to like USC?
I don't think you're crazy. You're not crazy. And look, I listened to our Pac-12 experts go preview the whole conference a couple nights ago, and they asked this exact question. Like, is it nuts to say that we expect USC to make the college football playoff? And look, talent-wise, I don't think it is, especially with Caleb Williams at quarterback and the addition of Jordan Addison. Like, that's going to be, if not the most dynamic 1-2 punch in the air, it's second to CJ Stroud and Jackson Smith-Njigba. So look, I think they should win the Pac-12. I just have a hard time putting my stamp on that they will, because we've seen teams with talent at USC not do that in the last few years. Certainly there's a new staff, there's new players that should make you feel optimistic, but I won't reveal who I like to come out of that conference, but I think I am fading USC more than I would be buying their stock.
All right, fair enough. I just think with the talent that's on that roster and the explosiveness and the fact that you already have a quarterback and the head coach relationship that's baked in from, a couple of years of experience there. So I do think that there's value there. And again, I think that the concerns that you just mentioned are baked into the price. You're getting 20-1 odds. And I think that if you're looking for someone that you can root for and attach your flag to, and get a pretty good return on investment if it hits. USC to me 20-1 is kind of the long shot. Any long shot national title futures that you're interested in? Anything there? Or is it just something where it's you got to pick Alabama or Ohio State or Georgia and kind of ride with them?
Yeah, so I think my philosophy with betting futures for national champ specifically in college football is that it's a losing investment more often than not to look for long shots. You can go back the last decade plus. It's the same programs who win this thing repeatedly. And if it's not them, it's Georgia. It's an SEC program who rises up and sort of builds up after 4 or 5 years of leading up to a great season. I do think that if I had to put a number on this, there's a team that is undervalued to me in a big way. That's Oklahoma State. It's 66-1. Look, they are way behind Oklahoma and Texas in the values in the Big 12 conference. They returned Spencer Sanders. This is a team who won 12 games last season. To me, this is a program that is on the tipping point of what we just talked about with the Georgia building up to a great season. I think this is the time. I don't think last season was the great season. I think it could be this year. But to me, the value, if you wanted to play that, would be in Big 12, betting them to win that conference
that's
as
actually
opposed to winning it all.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue into getting some of the conference futures, because you do have quite a bit here that you like. It's great to beat the market, right? If you're getting someone at 66-1, if they really should be 40-1 or something like that, but it's still a losing bet if they don't end up winning that national title and going out to win. So if the market is undervaluing a team, a place where you can kind of realize some of that value instead of just, getting value on a bet that you make that ends up losing, is going into those conference only markets. So right now, Oklahoma State is plus 550. You also like Baylor at plus 500. Talk me through that.
It's the same exact strategy. I mean, I like getting 2 shots at this, to be honest with you. The strategy is you're selling Oklahoma and Texas. And right now, BetRivers lists Oklahoma at 2-1. They list Texas at plus 250. I think, year in, year out, you would find those teams valued right about there. And year in, year out, at least the last few seasons with Texas, that has never been the case. Oklahoma, definitely. But I mean, with Oklahoma's program transition they're going through right now, it's hard for me to point at them and feel confident that they're just going to be head and shoulders above the second tier in this conference, which to me is Baylor and Oklahoma State. These two teams did play each other in the Big 12 championship last game. They had a goal line stand that would have sent one of the teams to the playoff. I mean, they're close. And I don't think they should be a whole tier in terms of value behind that top tier of Oklahoma and Texas. So to me, I'm going to sprinkle both. I do lean Oklahoma State as the better value because they won plus 550 instead of plus 500. And 2, Spencer Sanders to me is a killer at quarterback, is a dual threat guy who can make plays on the move, keep plays alive. So I really like that. But anytime you get 5-1 with Dave Aranda, who is one of my favorite coaches in the country, I would not be shocked at all if one of those two teams run away with the Big 12.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk a little bit about that team out in the Pac-12 that you just referenced. You like Utah plus 240 to win the Pac-12 over USC. Is it just a value play? Do you like them more? What's your take there?
It's a mix of both. I do think it's a value play. Look, with Utah football, they had a great season last year, and they end up in a shootout in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State, where they had I believe, a 3-touchdown lead early in that game. And for the first time all season, their defense couldn't stop the other team. And I don't think there are many teams in the country that could stop that Ohio State offense. So I don't necessarily blame them for that. Utah football, to me, great lines, great defense, great running game. They've got their quarterback, Cam Rising, back. They've got 2 tight ends, I believe, who are on the Field of 12 tight end watch list this season. And they get USC at home. I mean, if you think USC is the favorite in this conference, I would point at a team who actually won the conference last year, returns a ton of key pieces, will have the best running game in this conference, and I think can win the trenches against a team that has the talent at the skill positions the way that USC does.
You know why they'll win the trenches, Greg?
Why is that?
The biker gang.
The biker gang, baby. The biker gang. Look, I think the winner of that game has a massive leg up to win this conference, and Utah sitting there at plus 240 jumps out to me as the best value.
So you also have Alabama minus 190. I try to stay away from futures that are minus value just because I'm an idiot, and I like to see those big numbers on what you could end up winning. You also have NC State at plus 700 to win the ACC. Fresno State, I'm sorry, at plus 250 to win the Mountain West, and Florida to win the SEC East at plus 1,400. All those are interesting. I want to talk about the Big Ten specifically, though. Michigan plus 825 to win the Big Ten, and you like Iowa at plus 500 to win the Big Ten West. I want to get into Iowa first because it feels like that Iowa fans are not happy with us. They were not happy with where we had them ranked on our Big Ten preview show with Jake Butt and Josh Perry and Christian Hackenberg. I believe that both those guys had them in the 8-9 range. They're not happy with us because we said Keegan Murray may not end up being the next LeBron James. Iowa fans are just not happy with the entire network. Field of 12, Field of 68, whatever. So are you simply pandering to try to get back in the good graces with the great state of Iowa, or do you really like Spencer Petras? Was it just because of the fact that you got an interview with him?
Well, I was going to say, no,
that thick is better.
I'm not pandering, but you know this, Rob. I'm easily bought, and I got to sit down with Spencer Petras, Iowa's quarterback. Okay, he won me over within minutes. He did answer my question about what it's like to be referred to by NFL draft scouts as "quote unquote" almost too thick. It was a very entertaining interview, clearly. But no, here's the truth of this, right? And I'm not going to come on screen and try to convince anyone that my football analysis should be listened to over Jake Butt and Joshua Perry and Christian Hackenberg. Those guys are Big Ten geniuses who have done it on the field, who are the best in the industry at analyzing football. When they tell me that they believe a certain team is going to be good and maybe a certain team is going to have a step back, I'm listening to them and I wholeheartedly believe them. However, I do worry that maybe they're doing a trap that I fall into quite a bit in college basketball, where I actually do know quite a lot about that sport, believe it or not. And every year I talk myself into teams being, a darling underdog type team that's going to take a massive leap forward. I think last year I said St. Bonaventure would go undefeated for the entire season, right? To me, those guys.
You actually said that?
Yeah, no, I did, Rob. We don't need to revisit this. Let me finish my spiel. Thank you. So these guys' predictions that Iowa is going to finish 4th or 5th in that division are based on their belief that a team like Purdue or a team like Minnesota is going to make this huge jump. When I would push back on that element. I wouldn't push back necessarily that Iowa might not be as good as normal, but in the standings, is that going to reflect because PJ Fleck takes a team to 10 wins? I'm selling that aspect of this. So to me, that division is a crapshoot. It is every single year. There are two teams that constantly find themselves atop that division. It's Wisconsin and it's Iowa. And it's because of the infrastructures that those programs have built and how they win without flash, but just substance. And I don't think there is a lot that separates Wisconsin and Iowa this year. So for them to be, what did you say the number was? It was plus 400 or above just to win
plus
that
500.
division? Plus 500 to win that division seems juicy to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was very much swayed by listening to Hack rave about the Minnesota defense and listening to JP talk about how good the quarterback play was at Purdue. I'm very, very easily swayed. So that's one reason why I saw Iowa here and my eyes kind of popped. Real quick, you got about a minute and a half to rant away and to speak about your Michigan Wolverines at plus 825. How? In the Big Ten, you have Michigan. How? Why?
I really don't believe this is very homery at all. In fact, we can get into my fandoms deeply in another place, but I am a Michigan State football fan. I'm not a Michigan football fan. I think plus 825 is insanity as far as value goes for the team that just won this conference and for the team that won it by 4 touchdowns in the Big Ten championship game and beat Ohio State pretty comfortably last season. Now, look, Ohio State, no doubt, is a better football team. That's still true. But I think people are underestimating how massive the mental change is going to be for this program actually getting the monkey off their back with Ohio State. I think that team's going to approach that game entirely different. And Jake Butt talked about that. And it was a really fascinating thing to hear from a former Wolverines perspective. But on top of that, Michigan's got the easiest non-conference schedule in the country. I'm not saying that helps them win the conference because they literally don't matter, those games. But if they go 4-0 by blowout win after blowout win and have 5 weeks to prepare for their first big game, which is at Iowa in Kinnick Stadium, Like, I fully expect them to win that game. I fully expect them to kind of float through the regular season schedule. They've got Michigan State at home, Penn State at home, and then it all comes down to winning one game. And on the flip side with Ohio State, in their division, they're at Michigan State. They're at Penn State. On the cross division, they have to play Wisconsin and Iowa. This is an Ohio State program that usually drops one game they shouldn't, even if they beat Michigan in the regular season. And this year, they've really got 4 very tough ones in that second tier. It's going to come down to Michigan or Ohio State, but I like the mental edge that Michigan could potentially have this season, and I think they have a way easier schedule.
Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Ohio State is soft. Not mentally strong. All right, real quick, we have 5 over-unders here that you like and that you listed. We don't have to spend too much time on it. You have Baylor over 7.5. If you go back and listen to the Baylor section, you could probably figure out why Greg likes that line. You have Michigan State over 7.5 wins at -139. Clemson under 10.5, -125, which is a little bit interesting. Virginia over 6.5 wins at -169. The one I do want to ask you, though, Alabama under 11.5 wins, -139. If you like Alabama to win the national title, that's regular season wins, by the way. That doesn't include stuff in the playoffs or the SEC title game. If you like Alabama to win the SEC at -190, and you like Alabama to win the national title at +125, why are we now saying under 11.5 wins at -139?
Because I don't believe they have to go undefeated at all in order to be on the path to win the national championship. In fact, that multiple times in the last decade, they've won the title while losing a regular season game. Look, this is a little bit of a heartstring play, but I also think it's a smart play. And it is, you're laying a little juice at -139. But if you're not an Alabama football fan, which I am not, and 90% of college football fans, if not much more than that, are not Alabama football fans, there is no more fun bet season long than just needing one Alabama loss to cash your ticket. I mean, you get 12 weeks of checking in to see if they're up 7 touchdowns against some small school or to see if they're in a dogfight the final week of the season against Auburn. And look, more often than not, it cashes. More often than not, this program doesn't go undefeated. Their schedule this year is a gauntlet. They've got Auburn and Texas A&M at home that I see as losable games, but they go on the road to Texas, Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss, all games that could get dicey, potentially become shootouts if teams can keep up on the scoring column. I think they only got to lose one. I think they will lose one, but then I think they will harness that into some postseason motivation and be right on the track in the college football playoff.
And it is a nice way to hedge. If you're betting on Alabama to win the SEC, you can also have them win the SEC and still hit that under 11.5 bet. So you can win both of them, and it does kind of mitigate a little bit of the risk as well. All right, Heisman futures. Let's get into this. CJ Stroud +175, Bryce Young +350, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Caleb Williams +750. I think that is the consensus top 3. And you have some other guys after that we'll get into in a second. But I want to start with those 3, right? Why CJ Stroud? Bryce Young won it last year. CJ Stroud coming back. He's a more of a favorite. Why is that? And do you see any value on Bryce Young here in this spot?
I see a ton of value on Bryce Young in this spot. Now, I think there is some projection specific to Bryce Young winning this trophy of having a quote unquote Heisman hangover. We've seen a lot of guys win this award that are underclassmen that come back, and it's a narrative driven award. It's an award that they want to give that award to someone new. They don't want to give that award to the same player 3-4 years in a row. Now, the thing for me with Bryce Young is there is no hangover when you play at Alabama and you're the starting quarterback and you just lost in the national championship. Like, if anything else, I expect Bryce Young to come out as an absolute killer from the moment this season kicks off. I think that there's not a lot separating this group, to be honest with you. And we've heard all our quarterback experts talk about that all offseason. But to me, Caleb Williams is the most risk oriented one here. You just don't know what he's going to look like in that system. He could look great. He might not. And there's a lot of new faces over there. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud to me are by far 1A and 1B as far as winning this award. I'd like CJ Stroud if his number was closer to where Bryce Young's is at. I actually think that's not enough value at +175. And And I like a long shot. If you want to go the Ohio State route, like if you think that team's going to run away with this undefeated season type thing.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Before you do, I want to make one point real quick on Caleb Williams. I thought it was really interesting. So Yogi Roth on we've had him on a couple of preview shows, and one point that he made is he's a Heisman voter, and what he's found watching this is that so much of it involves the narrative and the storylines and the hype and the Heisman moments. And it's not necessarily the best player or the guy that impacts winning. It's the guy that captures America's heart, more or less, right? It's the guy that has these moments where he explodes onto the scene. He has the 85-yard touchdown run at the end. He's got, game-winning moments. All of this. There's a reason why they call it like the Heisman moment, right? There's a reason why that term exists. Caleb Williams plays in a conference where nobody could watch those games on TV, even the people in his own state, even his own fans, right? He plays games that are going to be on at 10 o'clock on Saturday nights when most of the East Coast is out at a bar watching without sound on, probably 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12 drinks deep at that point, right? And I think that's something that's relevant to think about. Now, I think that he very much has a season in him where he could end up being the best of those three quarterbacks. I don't know if anyone else in the country has as much game-breaking ability as that dude does, right? But I do think that's something that you need to consider, which is why I'm sitting here touting USC chance to win the national title, and I'm not going to go out and say if that happens, Caleb Williams, Heisman. I think you're much more likely to see them win the title than it is to have him be able to outplay a guy like a CJ Stroud with all of the weapons you're about to talk about them, or someone like a Bryce Young who just won it last year. I thought that was that insight from Yogi, and I think that's something that's important to note here in this conversation.
The other thing I'd want to say with CJ Stroud, also going back there in this tier of three, would just be like, you really have to believe that CJ Stroud is a different type of athlete and a different type of potential quarterback, stat producer, whatever you want to call it, than all the other great Ohio State college quarterbacks we've seen. And I think he is, as far as projecting to the pros, but how many great Ohio State quarterbacks have been the most prolific guy at that position in the country in the last 2 decades and haven't won the Heisman? I mean, you can name them. So I don't know that there's necessarily something about that program with that spot, with that award, where it just prevents that player from being seen as the runaway narrative guy. But to me, there's a narrative that's ready-made for Bryce Young. And that's, redemption season. If Alabama really is to run the table, I mean, I think it's his award to lose again, even over CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams.
Yeah. All right. So the other issue that CJ Stroud could have is that the vote could be split. He's got a great running back that's also on the list of guys at the top that could end up winning the Heisman Trophy, or in Trevion Henderson, and wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, who at 30-1 odds, I mean, he's the best receiver in the country, isn't he?
Well, people tell me he's the best player in the country, and that's why I jotted his name down. If you're looking for a long shot here, look, if you're going to believe that offense is that prolific, which we have all reason to believe that it will be, and they're going to put up insane numbers, score 40, 50 points sometimes in games, then Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to get 2-3 touchdown games frequently. And like you said, that's going to work in fighting with his quarterback as potentially winning this award. But if he puts up a 15, 20 touchdown season, which I don't think is out of the question for this guy, 30-1 is worth a sprinkle for the guy who, again, all our experts on the field of 12 that do these shows tell us he is probably the most talented football player in the country.
Yeah. I also like Bijan Robinson at 20-1. Man, I think he's probably the most talented running back in college football. I think that if Texas, he's at a massive brand. If he's the guy where they put everything on his shoulders and he carries Texas back to being what Texas football, all those fans want it to be, I think that is something that would be worth looking at. The issue is, he's got a guy that is supposed to be a freshman in high school that's coming with all the hype, or I'm sorry, a freshman in college that comes in with all the hype. Quinn Ewers, the quarterback spot. I don't know. We hear some of our experts tell us how Quinn Ewers is going to do really well there. And some of other ones are like, nah, you know what? He's going to be a bust. I don't like it, the way that he's wired. I don't think it's a good fit. So that's probably baked into the price there. But I do think that Bijan Robinson at 20-1, there's a little bit of value on that. All right. We have 2 plays for you this weekend. I want to start with the teaser first. I know you got a 5-team teaser that you like. We're going to do this every week, right? Gray's the Parlay King is going to come out with his teaser of the week and our retirement parlay. So why don't you start with the teaser of the week and what you like? And for people that don't know, like, one thing when you're teasing games, never tease through 0. Never go from like laying 3 points to getting 3 points, right? You mentioned numbers, right? You want to try to get through two key numbers. You want to try to get through 3 and 7 or 7 and 10 or 6 and 7 and 10, things like that. You want to get through two key numbers, 10 and 14. That's really important when it comes to the amount of return that you will get on these teasers hitting. So why don't you walk me through real quick the 5-team teaser that you have?
Yeah, so I've got a 5-legger, and it's just over 6-1 odds. It's juicing up a lot of these numbers with the plus points this week, and then it's one essentially money line favorite that I lean heavily towards. So I'll run through the 5 legs. Northwestern teased up to 19 points from 13, getting over that key 14 number.
You get through 14 and 17. That's
Yukon up to plus 33.5 from 27.5. So now lose by less than 4 touchdowns. Feel good. Wyoming plus 17 as opposed to plus 11. North Texas plus 5 as opposed to -1. I do think North Texas, there's quite a bit of value in money line on that game. And then Hawaii plus 14.5 at the key number of 2 touchdowns, plus 605 at BetRivers for that 5-leg teaser.
It's not bad. I like it. All right, let's get into your retirement parlay. Today, it's going to be an 11-team parlay every single game. Every single game. And I mean, it's going to hit this week, right, Greg? We're going to go 1-0.
It's going to hit every week. Look, Rob, what the people at home might not know is that there are some people who bet recreationally, and then there are some people who bet because this is what they do. Okay. I'm sitting right now in a Jared Zabransky Boise State jersey. I was wearing this jersey in my living room last year when I hit a 6-leg parlay to win $37,000 on a $100 bet. Okay. We're hunting that every single week this season, and you can hunt along with us at BetRivers. This is 11 legs. I'm going to fly through it, Rob. We're going to fly through. We have no time for analysis. We are going. This is a mix of money lines and lines, alternate spreads, things that I like. It's a mix of everything that I feel confident is going to hit this weekend. Yukon plus 35.5. Western Kentucky minus 27 against Austin Peay. Northwestern money line to beat Nebraska. UNLV money line against Idaho State, Illinois money line against Wyoming, Florida Atlantic money line against Charlotte, North Carolina minus 34.5 against Florida A&M, North Texas money line against UTEP, Nevada money line against New Mexico State, Hawaii money line against Vanderbilt, and Duquesne plus 40 points at Florida State. Rob, it is $100 to win $61,530.74.
And 74 cents. You cannot forget that 74 cents. All right. You guys heard it here first. That is the retirement parlay. This was the inaugural episode of the Field of 12 Best Bets show. For Greg Waddell, my name is Rob Dauster. We will see you guys again next Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern time.